What's up, people? Welcome back to Chris Chats Comics. My name is Chris Gonzalez, and I'm back again for another episode of Single Issue Saturday. I've decided, just based on my schedule, I'm going to rename this series one last time to Single Issue Sundays, and I'll still go off the numbering system I've been going, so this is still, technically it's the first episode of Single Issue Sundays, but it's going to be Single Issue Sundays number 18, and it'll still keep the same numbering. But yeah, I just decided that I'm going to be dropping these on a Sunday now. It just fits better with my schedule because I am pretty busy during the week, but I appreciate everybody's patience for kind of the inconsistent release schedule of these recap videos. But I've decided, again, Sunday is the day, so next week be prepared for Single Issue Sundays. So again, this is the series. I recap and discuss most of the issues that I picked up in the previous Wednesday on New Comic Wednesdays, and you can check the latest video out. I'll put a link at the end of the video, but so I'm just going to go over the physical issues that I picked up and some of the digital issues that I read. So this week was a pretty good week, not going to lie, of the issues that I'm going over. So let's start with Marvel. Again, first issue is Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 22, and this is written by Joe Kelly. There's multiple artists, and they include Nick Bradshaw, Todd Knock, and Nathan Stockman, and Scott Hanna did some of the inking. And Marte Gracia and Rachelle Rosenberg are the colorist, and Joe Caramagna is the letterer. And cover done by Mark Bagley, which, to be honest, Mark Bagley is my favorite Spider-Man artist, so appreciate the cover. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent issue from Joe Kelly. There was some moments I didn't much care for, but I thought overall this was a pretty decent issue. And the whole storylines with Peter out in space and Norman on Earth being Spider-Man, it kind of overstayed its welcome in my opinion. So I was just waiting for it to be over, and this issue number 22 is like the conclusion to both those storylines, and it starts with Peter, he's coming back to Earth with his new space friends. And I thought the artwork, not John Romita, so I dug the artwork. And even though there were multiple artists on this issue, I thought that it flowed pretty seamlessly from each art style. So I appreciated that, because some of these issues where it has multiple artists and just the changes, you can tell it can be very jarring. But this issue did a good job with it being seamless between the different artists, so I appreciated that. And yeah, just Peter saying his last goodbyes to some of his space teammates, and Raylith, his new space girlfriend, goes with him. Glitch, the Technarch suit, goes with him, and Symbi. Still don't know what Symbi is. I guess he's just, he's part symbiote, but I'm not sure if it's just the symbiote or if the symbiote took over alien being. I'm not sure, but yeah. So I really do, even though it's like a pseudo Guardians of the Galaxy, I did enjoy their banter with one another, Peter and his space friends. So I thought that was, pretty cool. And Glitch, he's pretty sarcastic and he has very dry humor, so I like that. And we finally figure out that even though this is like my least favorite subplot, I think it's Osani Milton is Peter's boss at Rand Appliances or Applied Sciences, whatever. It's Rand Enterprises. But yeah, we finally figure out that her son, his name is Ken, and it looks like he has an illness, but that is Captain Kintsugi. It's revealed. So it's not really a big surprise that her son ended up being Captain Kintsugi. So, I really don't care for that subplot. And then we jump back. Ben Reilly, again, he was posing as Peter, and he's with his girlfriend. I forgot her name. It's like, I forgot her name, but her power is she can wear, anytime she puts on a mask, she gains a power. She has a room full of all of these masks. So Peter, and I thought this was cool, like you can see the reflection on Ben Reilly's mask of Peter jumping through the window. I thought that was a pretty cool detail. And so yeah, Peter and Ben Reilly, they get into a fight. Peter, he goes to Aunt May's home. He finds there's boxes packed with different people's stuff in it. He doesn't know what happened to May, and then he finds a letter from Ben Reilly's, and Ben Reilly's just giving him the lowdown of what happened while he was gone. Peter gets upset, and yeah, he goes to Ben Reilly. I don't know why. This part, I don't know why Peter would be so upset if he read the letter, because it'll have what Ben Reilly, what he put in the letter, and it didn't seem that bad. So I don't know why. But they fight, and cooler heads prevail, and then Ben Reilly's just kind of spitting facts to Peter. He's like, hey, if you had a better friend foundation, your life would have been so fucked up, essentially. But then we find out his space girlfriend's like getting sick because of the bacteria in Earth's atmosphere. So they have to go to somebody who has an expertise in dealing with alien life forms, and one person or multiple people, but specifically Reed Richards. So you guessed it. They go to the Baxter building and find out. And I thought this moment between Johnny and the Thing with everybody, I thought that was pretty charming. And Norman, we do follow up with Norman. He is leaving Dr. Myra Osmani Milton a message because she had told Norman about her son and the illness he has, and so Norman, he's looking into it and seeing what he can do, so we'll see where that goes. And then he decides that he's gonna call Miles Morales, so I think that's gonna set up this new mini-series where Norman is being a mentor to all these young spider heroes, which I don't really like that idea, but it's whatever. But yeah, this is probably the best part of the whole issue is Aunt May has moved in with her boyfriend Ricardo, and Peter goes to his house and asks him if he could see her, and he's not having any of it because he thinks Peter's like a junkie. But he gives in and lets Peter talk to May. And yeah, this moment was really Joe Kelly's like the best writing he's done in probably most of his whole run. But he really gets that Peter and Aunt May's relationship. So this is a really sweet moment between the two. As Peter sees that Aunt May is hurt, they console one another. And yeah, I thought this was a great way to end the issue. And this is the last issue before the Death Spiral crossover event with Venom. So I thought this was a satisfying conclusion to the previous storyline that went on too long. But anyway, so yeah, that was Amazing Spider-Man number 22. And now we move on to Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, and this is issue 1. Love the variants cover by Chip Zdarsky, but this is written by Chip Zdarsky, and the artwork is done by Luca Maresca. The colorist is Jesus Albertoff, and the letterer is Joe Sabino, and I apologize if I mispronounce any of those names, and yeah, my bad if I did. But yeah, it just goes over essentially how Logan was first introduced into the Weapon X program, we had a mutant. Her name is Terry, I think, and she's like a scout. Her power is she can track mutants, so she essentially like tracks and recruits Logan to the Weapon X program. So this is like a flashback. They're at a bar, and he's, nothing really new territory here. We've seen other stories do this, but yeah, this is just setting up the players. So Terry recruits him, and it looks like she regrets some of it. And then it jumps to the present. Someone is running with the wolves. Who is that? Is it a new player? Is it a new mutant? We're gonna find out. But yeah, then Logan, he's having nightmares just thinking about the Weapon X program throughout this whole issue. The artwork was okay, nothing too crazy, but Logan reunites with Terry, and she has informed him that there's another like government project going on, and they're trying to recreate the super soldier serum, but I don't know, but it's a private company, and its name is Prime Warrior, so they're taking a page from the Weapon X program, and then so they're essentially experimenting on mutants and other people to try to develop more super soldiers. So she's trying to make up for what she did in the past, so she's trying to help those who are targeted by this company. And she asked Logan for help because a recently detained mutant has escaped from one of their facilities, and she's asking Logan to track him. And Logan, he's initially hesitant, but he eventually agrees to go. And again, still having nightmares of Weapon X. So they go through this. I'm not sure if they're in Canada or not, but they stumble across this facility where the mutant had escaped. So they decide to take out a couple of the guards and infiltrate the facility. And this all has ties with the origin boxes. And again, this is setting up the upcoming 5-issue events that's going to be released this summer, also written by Chip Zdarsky. I think it's just officially revealed that it's going to be called Avengers Armageddon. So this is like a prelude. So the main thing is there's these origin boxes that Miles Morales had received from the new Ultimate Universe, and he brought over to the 616 universe, and there's a bunch of these origin boxes. So this whole event just plays on how I guess they're going to fall into the wrong hands. So apparently this facility had an origin box, I believe so. So they're trying to retrieve it. As you can see here, this is the origin box. So Wolverine, Logan, and Terry, they're just looking at the files about this mutant that was being experimented on, and they're targeting mutants who can have that regenerative abilities. I forgot that I left that out, but so that's how Logan gets involved, because he can heal. So again, they're trying to track him, and yeah, I just thought this was cool. There's a lot of setup. Again, I'm curious to see how the origin boxes are going to come into play, because again, it's going to set up the larger event. And so eventually they're going to recruit the private company, Prime Warrior. They're going to recruit someone to track Logan down, because they know that Logan's been involved based on what happened at this facility. And it is Nuke. Nuke is set on a mission to confront Logan. So we'll see how that fight plays out. And again, Logan is still having nightmares of the Weapon X. So that's been, happening throughout. And again, they're tracking this mutant, and suddenly they get attacked. It's a cool image. Logan gets shot in the head, but of course he survives. And then this is the best page. Look at this. Look at how cool this is. Just love the brown and yellow suit. Really dug. This was my favorite page. Just really, it's essential Wolverine right here. Really dig the artwork. So yeah, and they eventually come across this cabin in the middle of the woods. And I'm not reading Chip Zdarsky's Captain America run right now. I heard it's pretty good. I might read the trades. We'll see. I'm not really a big Captain America comic fan, but Logan, he comes across this cabin that has a shield, but it's not Steve Rogers' shield. It's this dude that's, I think his name is Colton, but he's in Chip Zdarsky's Captain America run, and he was Captain America at some point, a different Captain America. But it jumps to the escape mutant. Again, it looks like his power is while he also has the Wolverine claws, I guess he can put a shell of adamantium over his body. So we'll see how that plays. So again, a lot of setup, but I thought the artwork was just okay, but I was left intrigued. It's only a 4-issue miniseries, so I'll probably pick them all up, but yeah. Doug, Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, issue number 1. And let's go ahead now get to the lone image title that I picked up. And this is White Sky, issue number 1. And this is the cover B. I'm not sure who did the cover. Who did the cover? Okay. Eliza Ivanova. Eliza, I'm sorry I butchered your last name. I promise I will get it right. So this book has, there's a lot of craze going around this book. It was really difficult to get an issue 1. eBay prices before it even dropped were for a cover A was around $30, 30 and up, and I thought that was really crazy. So this is pretty much a spec book, so I'm not sure how long it'll stay at those prices, but yeah, I got the last copy when I picked this up, and yeah, it's the new Image series again. The writer is William Harms, and apparently he worked on the old PlayStation games, Infamous. So that I heard about that, and I liked those games back in the day, so I was curious. But yeah, he's the writer. The artist is J.P. Mavinga. Lee Luridge is the colorist, and Ed Dukeshire is the letterer. So I really dug the artwork. It's set in a dystopian version of America, specifically the San Francisco Bay, and I felt that the artwork really fit the tone. Definitely has a Last of Us, Walking Dead kind of vibe, and obviously the sky is really, really white, hence the name of the comic. But it's set in a dystopian future. I'm not sure exactly what year it takes place in, but it follows this dad and his daughter as they rummage through and survive through this wasteland, and they come across something that's out there that will probably could kill them. We don't know what yet, but yeah, just really dug the artwork. It definitely complemented the tone and the atmosphere of the story. So yeah, and the pacing was done really well. It was a really fast read, but yeah, it's just following this father and daughter, and they stay at this shack, and since it is the apocalypse, they are counting their bullets, and I thought just the conversation between them was it did a lot of character and relationship development between the two, and you get a sense of what they've gone through, and without even knowing too much about them. So they have the girl's name is Violet. The father, I'm not sure what his name is, but apparently she had lost her mother. And so I thought, again, the writing was done really well so we can care about the main character. And yeah, all of a sudden, father, they go to bed, and the father then wakes up at night. He hears something outside, and Violet says, what does Violet say? She tells him not to go out there, but he's like, okay, I'm just gonna check really quick. You'll still be able to see me, but then he pretty much gets he gets jumped by these two random guys, and I really like that image. Look at that shotgun to the head, really cool. I like the composition of the panel layouts, really cool. And then all of a sudden, these entities come out of the ground and they're beeline it towards this area. And the two, like, marauders or bandits, they take the father away. So father has been kidnapped, and Violet, she tries to go after her father, but he tells her that these entities are after her. So she heads back to the shack they were staying at, and someone is telling her, she hears a voice in her head, and someone is telling her, assisting her. So we don't know who that is. I have an idea, and if it turns out to be true, I mean, it's not that surprising, but she creates this circle of salts all around her to essentially they're ghosts, and they can't penetrate and hurt her while she's in this circle. So again, really cool artwork. And at the end, a bunch of them surround her, and is she really gonna commit suicide? I doubt it, because she's the main character. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And then the writer, he could just talks about how the book came to be and what influenced the book, and it's a story essentially about Violet and how she deals with this dystopian setting. So I thought it was cool. Was it worth the hype, and is it worth the really high prices on eBay for the cover A? I don't think so, but yeah, I'm definitely interested, and definitely gonna pick up issue 2. So that was White Sky issue number 1. And okay, now we're gonna move on to DC, and the first DC issue that I'm going to discuss is the first digital issue this week, and it's Nightwing. This is issue number 135, and this is written by Dan Waters. The art is by Dexter Soy. The colors are by Veronica Gandini, and the letters are done by Wes Abbott. And this is the conclusion to the Zanny arc that's been going on, and it is also the last issue for Dexter Soy on the interior artwork. Next issue, number 136, I believe it's Dennis Cowan. He's going to be the new main artist. So, but yeah, at first I didn't really like Dexter Soy's art style. It was I had to get used to it being so different from Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor's run. So it took a while for me to get used to it, but after a while I definitely appreciated Soy's artwork more based on the tone of Dan Waters' script. So yeah, we begin in the aftermath of the last issue where Dick Grayson, he's traveled to the fifth dimensional realm of the Cirque du Sin, where the Zanny entity has kidnapped a bunch of children from Bloodhaven. So Martian Manhunter, he opened up the portal to get Dick into this realm. So, and they, based on what happened in the fifth dimension in the Cirque du Sin, it damaged a lot of the areas in Bloodhaven, including one of the Titans Tower that was housing Nightwing Prime, who got injured and he was recovering from his injuries. And it immediately starts off with Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, running towards the fallen tower, trying to help Nightwing Prime. And my one small nitpick, and it happened at this moment in the issues, where Martian Manhunter's right there and he has like phasing powers where he can just phase through buildings. Why didn't he just go in and phase through the building and help Nightwing Prime? But that was a small nitpick. And then it just cuts to Nightwing Prime. He's already out and he's okay. So I thought the pacing and the editing was a little off, but then it just kicked right back into the story where Dick, he had hurts and slowed down the Zanny initially in the last issue, so now he's helping the children. And it just he has a conversation with these children that he tries to calm them down, and he tries to let them know that everything's going to be all right. And I really thought that conversation he had with the children just made the character of Dick Grayson just this wholesome dude, and just a good person. And definitely he has the moralities between Batman and Superman. It's like melded together and you get Nightwing. So I thought that was really, I really enjoyed that part. And then and I thought, but when to get out of this Cirque du Soleil, I thought it was a little convenient that Dan Waters, how he wrote this part where he just made it seem like, oh, well, in the fifth dimension, if you believe it, it just happens. So Dick, he believes that there's a ladder that'll take him out of the Cirque du Soleil up into the normal world. So a ladder shows up and he has to climb the ladder with the children. And then the Zanny, he, comes back up and tries to prevent that from happening. And I just thought the Zanny's design was honestly really terrifying. So shout out to Dexter Soy for his design of the Zanny. Just, again, one of the more terrifying villains that I currently, in my opinion, for the mainline DC. So shout out to I always thought the design of the Zanny was pretty cool. And so Zanny's trying to prevent Dick from rescuing the children and escaping the Cirque du Soleil, but then all of a sudden Nightwing Prime shows up and stops the Zanny. And I also forgot to mention that Nightwing Prime it makes the way he entered the Cirque du Soleil was really cool. And I did appreciate it, and this is a moment I appreciated Dan Waters writing, because in reality, Nightwing Prime, he's just like a 15-year-old kid who obtained abilities through the fifth dimension. It's a really complicated and convoluted comic book story, but there's a lot going on. But this 15-year-old kid essentially gains the powers of like a Kryptonian. And anyway, so since he's in reality a kid, he can see the portal to the Cirque du Soleil, because only children can, only they can hear it, and only they're able to transport over to this particular realm. But yeah, so Nightwing Prime saves Dick, and he destroys the gateway to the real world. So he's stuck in the Cirque du Soleil with the Zanny, but I thought his sacrifice was pretty commendable, and it was just a way to write him out of the story. But, there's opportunities for him to come back, but the Nightwing Prime, he stays to stop he stays to prevent the Zanny from coming back. And I just thought it was another solid issue of Nightwing. This arc really stepped up the quality in Dan Waters' run, so I've been really enjoying it. And then in the epilogue, it pretty much introduces the next villain of the probably the next arc. There's a new mayor in Bloodhaven, and he doesn't look like he's a good guy. So, but that was Nightwing issue number 135. I really appreciated it. And now let's move on to the next DC issue that I picked up, and this is one from the Vertigo relaunch, and that is End of Life, and this is issue number 1, and is written by Kyle Starks. The artwork is done by Steve Pugh. Colors are by Chris O'Haron, and the letters are by Becca Carey. And yeah, this was a really fun issue. The whole tone of this story reminded me of an 80s action comedy with a lot of humor. Again, this is my first foray into Kyle Starks. I never really read any of his other previous work, but I enjoyed it. Some of the humor, he does have a lot of humor in this story, and not all of it landed for me, but I did have some laugh out moments. So I really appreciated the zaniness and just the bonkers humor, and it's foul humor. So if you're not a fan of that, you might not like it, but I really appreciated it. It's about this assassin. He joins this robbery, this hit on this some rich guy's mansion. One of his old homies from basic training, made a deal with this assassin. His name is Eddie Stallion. He will be our main protagonist. He kind of reminded me of Johnny Bravo for some reason. Just look at his hairstyle. He looks like a grown-up version of Johnny Bravo. But yeah, he's kind of an asshole, but yeah, they robbed this mansion, and Eddie, he slowly starts to figure out, like, hey, a lot of this stuff looks familiar. Where do I know this from? And he's actually a part of this, like, assassin. It's like an organization, a crime organization with all these assassins, called the Menagerie, and their whole aesthetic is they wear like each member wears an animal head. Eddie is the horse, so Eddie realizes that they're actually robbing the Raven, and the rule is you can't damage personal property of these crime bosses, essentially. So he's gonna have a bounty on his head, because he stole from the wrong guy. So his handler basically tells him, like, hey, you need to get out of town, go anywhere that you can't use your phone, you can't go to your stash houses, you just gotta go right now. And so he essentially goes back to his childhood home, and this home used to have this amusement park that was run by this guy named Richard Smiley. It's a rundown, but it looks run down. So eventually it takes Eddie to this gas station where, he's just having a conversation with the clerk at the gas station, and again, a lot of humor. But then these two guys attempt to rob the gas station, and Eddie, helps this lady out, beats the shit out of both of them. And I really dug the artwork. The action sequences by Steve Pugh really are just fun and energetic, and just the colors by Chris O'Halloran really elevated the artwork, and just it complemented the style of the artwork, and it was very vibrant and like the neon colors. So again, very 80s. And yeah, so anyway, Eddie eventually he goes to his father's house, and apparently his father was also a member of the Menagerie. So, but they don't have a good relationship. It's established early on in this issue that Eddie and his father do not have a good relationship. So they're always fighting, but again, really good humor. He's accusing, apparently, his one of his ex-wives gave Eddie a sweater for Christmas, and Eddie just was being a dick and disrespectful. But I thought that was really funny. Again, the way Kyle Starks built up their relationship, I thought it was done really well. So again, not all the humor hit for me, but when it does, it was pretty funny. There's several laugh out moments. Then you find out that his dad has cancer, so that's just another layer. So he's just reminiscing about when he was younger. And then we cut to the menagerie. Their members are talking about how the Raven is planning on killing Eddie. And again, really digging it. So it's kind of like a John Wick type of story as well. And you think Eddie's father is going to kill him, but nope. Eddie expected that, and you find out that Eddie's childhood crush, and I'm not sure if they dated, but they had feelings for each other. She is Eddie's father's hospice nurse. So thought that was interesting. And then we cut back to the guys who Eddie attacked at the gas station, and they are goons for Richard Smiley. So he's like, he's a pretty much drug dealer, Nazi enthusiast, and he had that amusement park that he made was shut down because they found out a bunch of bad shit about him. So he is after Eddie now. So the menagerie, Richard Smiley, they're both after Eddie. And again, I just thought this was a really fun title. I can't wait for the next issue. I definitely recommend End of Life. Really fun. Really fun. And the last issue I'm going to go over is, another great issue of Absolute Batman, and that's Absolute Batman issue number 17. And this is written once again by Scott Snyder. We have a guest artist for this 2-issue arc, and that's by Eric Canetti. The colors are once again by Frank Martin, and the letters are by Clayton Cowles. And immediately when this story started, the lettering by Cowles definitely stood out, especially during moments when Ivy was having her inner monologue. I thought that was really done well. And yeah, the tone and the aesthetic of this issue reminded me of Annihilation, the book by Jeff Vandermeer. And they also made a film about it, directed and written by Alex Garland, one of my favorite sci-fi horrors in recent years, and Natalie Portman was in it. So, but I digress. Go check out that movie. It's really good. So it just reminded me of that vibe, because that story involved with, plant DNA, human DNA, like splicing together and creating these different monsters. So I really thought of that book when I read this issue, and I wonder if Scott Snyder got some influence from that series. So I might have to ask him one day. But yeah, so essentially this building in Gotham gets infested with a bunch of plant life and flora. The GCPD sent in some cops to investigate, and they never returned. So Batman's investigating, and it cuts back and forth between Ivy's past and giving her more of her backstory, where her mother, she had a disease that I believe it's interpreted to be brain cancer. So Ivy, she's very smart, and she becomes a scientist and she's splicing different DNA. She's using plant DNA to see if they can help human cells regrow based on photosynthesis. So I thought that was really cool how Snyder implemented these like science into the story. And so that's pretty much her backstory. So anyway, cuts to the present. Alfred, he's telling Bruce what's going on, and it looks like in this building, there's these spores that that are mutated, like that mutate your cells. So Batman, he has to wear essentially a gas mask, and he has 2 chainsaws, one for each, like on his gauntlets. So I thought that was badass. It was just really cool. Again, in this whole series, it's just bombastic idea after bombastic idea, and I've been loving it. Definitely a very heavy anime influence on this. And this issue was also had a lot of horror influences as well. So Scott Snyder, throughout a lot of his comics, involve like a lot of horror elements, and Absolute Batman continues that sentiment, and especially in this issue, and I really appreciated that. And it goes back to Bruce. He's trying to connect with his friends again, and they're kind of shutting him out based on what happened in the Bane arc. And I'm interested in seeing how that, the fallout of that, because for Ozzy, he's, we don't know what he looks like now, but he's told his underlings to keep Batman out of his property and out of his area. And then Eddie, he's not letting Batman in his place. And then Harvey, he still needed to heal because half of his head was split open, and now he's left the hospital. Nobody knows where he's at. So Batman, and Bruce, he's just dealing with, because of his actions, his friends got messed up, and he's regretful, and he's full of guilt. And now he's seeing that since the Bane arc, the public is now worshiping Batman, and he didn't intend for that to happen. So he's kind of struggling with that, and kind of having imposter syndrome. And so Batman, he's traveling up this building, and it's pretty much like the movie The Raid, where it's one isolated building, and he has to go up level by level to face the main boss, the main big bad. And I also appreciated Eric Canetti's artwork in this. I'm not familiar with any of his work, but this issue definitely I'm now looking forward to whatever he does next. So shout out to Eric Canetti, and his style change between the flashback sequences with Poison Ivy and the present sequences. I thought it was done really well, and it seemed like two distinct styles, but it was the same guy. So again, I really appreciated that. And through the flashbacks, you understand why Ivy's doing what she's doing. She just wants to help her mother, and so she wants to essentially splice not only plant DNA, not only human DNA together. She wants to splice all the DNA from all the organisms from the animal kingdom into one, so they can all merge and become one new entity. And so I thought that was interesting. Again, reminded me of Annihilation. So, and then we jump back to, Batman, he's climbing up this building, and he's coming across the lost cops, but Alfred's telling him, hey, there's no signs of human life in there, get out of there. And Batman's saying like, no, what are you talking about? The cops are right here. So the cops transmuted and transformed into these like plant hybrids, and it was just very terrifying. The designs, again, a lot of horror elements. Really thought that was cool. And Batman, he comes across Barbara Gordon, as she was one of the cops who was sent on this mission, and I just like their banter together. A lot of humorous moments between the two of them, and provided some levity, and otherwise, again, dark and brooding tale. And so I'm excited to see how their relationship further develops, and when Barbara becomes Batgirl, because it's going to happen. And then it jumps to Martha and Jim Gordon. Their relationship has been very interesting, and it looks like they're developing a romantic relationship. So how is that going to change the dynamic with Bruce? I'm curious to see what happens. And so eventually Bruce comes across what he believes is Poison Ivy, and her design isn't really cool, but it's actually not her final design. We're going to get to it, but I thought, it reminded me of a lot of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore as well, but thought her design was cool. And her final, because she has made multiple copies of herself, plant DNA, human DNA, just multiple copies of herself, and her final reveal There's a full page spread of it, and it's just beautiful. Eric Canetti's design is just, you know, it's terrifying. It's just captivating. I really dug her design. And we find out that there's also, at the end of it, that, spoilers, Martha, Bruce's mom, is a part of the Court of Owls. So we'll see how the absolute version of the Court of Owls differs from, you know, what Scott Snyder did in his New 52 run. So overall, great issue. Another great issue of Batman and Absolute Batman. So Scott Snyder, he's continuing to kill it on the series. Eric Canetti, again, I thought was the MVP of the issue. Can't wait to see more of his work, and definitely recommend Absolute Batman. So that was it. Those were my thoughts, and let me know in the comments what you thought. If you read any of these books, let me know. And yeah, just like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, I appreciate everybody's patience with me as I've been just making slight changes and just figuring out what works for me in my schedule with this recap series. But again, it's going to be dropping on Sundays from now on. So single issue Sundays. We're here. Anyway, thanks again for watching the video. This is Chris Chats Comics. My name is Chris Gonzalez, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.